all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I seem to be allergic to most nuts, most fruits, and a lot of seeds. So it's a bit too warm for tea today, but this is going to be a fairly chatty video. I kind of just want to ramble and not think too much about where I'm going with this. I don't have any plans, I don't have any notes. We're just going to chat, and it's going to be a relatively contentious topic, I think, today, because I'm going to talk about veganism and vegetarianism and food and ethics and the difficulties sometimes of having a restrictive diet, because, you know, let's be real, let's be honest, a vegetarian or vegan diet is a restrictive diet, and I think sometimes people can be a little bit judgmental about the fact that it's not always easy for everybody. And yeah, we're just going to have a bit of a general chat, because I really haven't talked a lot about my eating habits on the channel. I know that I mentioned when I went vegetarian initially, I know that I mentioned that at some point, and do you know, I think I might have made a video on it. If I did, I'll link it up below. Up below? That doesn't make any sense. I'll link it up above. I'll link it in the clicky thing up there. Which is the handiest place to link videos for you. But I think I might have maybe made a video on this actually years back when I first decided to go vegetarian, because I had said for years that I didn't feel like I had any kind of spiritual imperative to be vegetarian. I just kind of didn't connect the two issues in my head. Like, I didn't connect my spirituality with all the reasons that you would be vegetarian. I was kind of in denial. I just kind of didn't really want to have to deal with changing my diet. And to be completely honest as well, I was struggling a lot with my diet because I suffered from IBS for probably about 5 years or more, maybe 5 or 6 years. And it became like a normal part of my life, but honestly, like, it was a struggle. And looking back on it, I can't believe just how, I remember when I was 3 years into experiencing this, maybe even 4 years into experiencing it, that a friend of mine, I had a really bad day one time, I was in a lot of pain. I remember, I think I had to lie down. We were like in college at this point, it was during my first master's degree, and I think I had to like lie down on the floor, and try and like get everything to settle down, while like a couple of my friends were like kind of sitting around chatting and waiting for me to feel better. And I remember afterwards, like when everything had settled down, we were able to like move on and do whatever, like my friend just saying to me, like, I'm really sorry that you have to deal with this, like that absolutely sucks, like, you poor thing. It was just so clear that she just could see how much this was affecting my day-to-day life, and that it was really affecting kind of my quality of life, and that she just felt really bad for me. But I didn't see it that way anymore. It had just become a normal part of my life. Like, I just was used to the fact that every time I ate a meal, there was like a 50-50 chance that like I would be in agony half an hour later. And I got really used to it, and eventually I did sort it out through diet and actually going vegetarian. Despite the fact that I think I had been avoiding going vegetarian because of my dietary issues, eventually when I did go vegetarian, I actually think it helped my IBS. I'm not saying that it will help everybody's. I don't think that's the case. I think for me, I just seemed to have a hard time digesting animal products, or certainly, in general animal products, because I definitely don't seem to be able to digest milk or yogurt very well either. I'm okay with cheese, but we'll get on to that later, because we're going to talk about veganism as well. But yeah, going off meat actually really helped me. Don't know why. Now maybe it was all the other things that I was doing, because I did a lot of things. I started drinking green smoothies, which I don't really do anymore because they tended to be so low in protein. And I have yet to find a vegan protein powder that agrees with me. I seem to react weirdly to like the sweeteners that they use in some of them. Like, they give me weird headaches and stuff. So because the smoothies kind of really are very low in protein, I just kind of stopped drinking them. I've been kind of trying to balance out my diet a bit better than it was for a long time, because we'll get into that in a minute too. But trying to do things like in order. So basically I had this excuse for a long time for not being vegetarian. Eventually I hit a point where I just felt like I can't justify this anymore. It felt too selfish for me to feel like it was wrong to be eating meat and just to not do anything about it. And so I did it. I quit meat, and I haven't looked back since. And that made me feel much more comfortable with my own kind of morality. It made me feel less hypocritical, and I definitely did it for multiple reasons. I definitely did it for the sake of animals. Again, in terms of animal welfare, it makes no sense to just stop eating meat and not stop eating dairy necessarily. I'm aware of that, we'll talk about that in a minute. But at least eating the dead animals I didn't want to do anymore. And also it was the kind of added bonus that it was obviously better for the environment, and in terms of my carbon footprint, it became increasingly important to me as well to try and live in ways that were reducing my carbon footprint, and that, again, just feeling less hypocritical. Not because I think it's going to make some big difference, because I don't think that this problem can be solved through individual small changes and choices. I think it definitely has to come top down, undeniably does, but at least it made me feel less hypocritical that I was kind of doing what I could. So I went vegetarian, and that was fine, and I eased into it. I always said I was going to ease into it, and I never really thought that I would ever be vegan, because it just seemed so extreme. Because when you go from eating a meat diet to going straight vegan, like, I'm glad I didn't try to, because as well, just in terms of getting my digestive system used to all of that change, you know, it would have been a lot all at once. And I really did rely on cheese and dairy a lot in the beginning. So I did that for a long time, and then over the years I obviously, like, I stopped eating fish after a while, and then I was still eating dairy, and then over the years I gradually got to a point where I felt like, okay, I've been vegetarian for a long time, there's nothing stopping me now trying to go vegan. And I gradually started to remove dairy products out of my life. I still to this day don't eat milk, cow milk or yogurt, because partly because they just don't agree with me, partly because I started eating soya products and so on instead, and I'm used to that now, and I'm happy doing that. Not saying that the products I eat are perfect for the environment either, because very little is perfect in this world, but it at least seems like an improvement. And anyway, like I say, milk, weirdly I can eat cheese. And I was gradually cutting out cheese and milk, chocolate and other kind of forms of dairy products, and obviously eggs. Eggs aren't a big thing for me because I can't really eat eggs anyway. So I was cutting all of that out of my life gradually, and bit by bit, and I would kind of, like, I would fall back into the habit and fall back onto the wagon of eating cheese again. Cheese is the one thing that for me, and milk, chocolate, are the things that for me are really, really hard to completely cut out, just because it's tricky to, I don't know, just sometimes I just really want that kind of fat in my diet, and it's kind of helpful for protein and calcium, and just sometimes and if I'm lazy in particular, it just seems like so much easier, and they're very tasty things, and I would fall off the wagon sometimes. But I was more and more kind of thinking of myself as being ordinarily vegan. Like, vegan was my day-to-day existence. Day-to-day, most of the time, I was not buying this stuff into the house. Like, everything I bought into my own home was vegan. And then a couple of things happened. I started to feel terrible. I started to feel dizzy and exhausted and sick all the time. My energy levels were completely depleted, and I went back and forth to the doctor over a span of several years, trying to figure out, was there something actually wrong with me, or was I just burnt out, or did I just have a bad immune system, or what was going on? And eventually, quite a few months back now, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, 4 months ago at least, I finally had another blood test done. I'd already had a blood test done, and I was told that my iron levels were low. Well, not my hemoglobin, but my ferritin levels in my iron. I don't know how this works exactly. I know that there's like 2 different numbers in terms of your iron count in your blood. So like my red blood cells were fine, like my blood cell count was fine, and my hemoglobin was fine, but my ferritin, which I think is your iron stores. So I think it's like once the hemoglobin runs out that you kind of dip into your ferritin, maybe? I have no idea. Don't quote me on that at all. Like, I have no idea. I haven't really done any independent research on this much anymore, yet, I mean. So I was told that my ferritin was low, and I was told that my vitamin D was low, and neither of those things honestly surprised me, because I kind of knew that I had been putting all of my effort and energy into being vegan and not into being nutritious. And this was definitely a huge wake-up call for me. So once I started thinking about it and actually looking at like the nutritional content of what I was eating, I just really started to realize just how low in protein and in iron that like my diet actually was, because I just wasn't eating enough beans and lentils and spinach and all of that good stuff that actually has a lot of the stuff that you don't get when you're not eating meat. I was relying way too much just on eating large amounts of vegetables and, you know, just like porridge and fruit and nuts and vegetables. Like vegetable dishes, like, you know, roasting lots of vegetables and stuff together, which was kind of satisfying and like felt fine, but ultimately meant that I ended up with a nutritional deficiency. The vitamin D is a whole other thing. It's, you know, living in Scotland made it even worse than living in Ireland. I should have been taking a vitamin D supplement and I wasn't. I was taking vitamin B12, by the way, and I am still taking vitamin B12 in case you kind of start wondering about that. So that was fine. So that all, I could have discovered all of that, and immediately, like, my reaction was not, like, a friend of mine who is on and off vegetarian or vegan, I think she's still vegetarian, her immediate question to me was, oh, are you going to start eating meat? And I was like, no. Like, why would I start eating meat just because I need iron? I just need to start eating lentils and spinach and, you know, lots of iron-rich vegetarian food, nuts and stuff as well. So I did all of that. I started eating huge amounts of spinach and way more lentils and beans into my diet. I was taking the supplements, and I have got myself to a point where my levels are much better than they were. They're still not ideal, but they're in like a normal range. But exactly the same time, once I started taking the supplements, the vitamin D supplement and the iron supplement, I developed an allergic reaction. I initially thought that it was to strawberries, and it was an allergic reaction of a kind that I've never had before. I have previously had a problem with pineapple. It makes my tongue kind of tingly, and I lose, like, I can't taste anything for ages afterwards, and my tongue kind of swells up and it's not great. But it's only ever been localized to my tongue, and it was only ever pineapple. This happened again, and I thought it was strawberries, and it happened again, and it got really bad, and my tongue felt way worse, and then I felt like my throat was going to close over. And I ended up in A&E, and it was a whole thing. And I was fine. My throat wasn't actually closing over. I think it was just the base of my tongue, because it was kind of a bit swollen. It's a very sensitive area in your throat, and it just felt like it was kind of closing up when it wasn't. But obviously it was a terrifying feeling, because you don't know, like, until you've had an experience of going into anaphylactic shock, like, you don't know what it feels like. So naturally it was kind of terrifying. And ever since then, I've been in a process of trying to figure out what the hell's going on, because I stopped eating strawberries. Symptoms went away for a few days, and then they came back, and this became a thing. And I've gotten to a point where I seem to be allergic to, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I seem to be allergic to most nuts, most fruits, and a lot of seeds. And guys, as a vegetarian, as a vegan, as an aspiring vegan, this was a disaster, basically, because it was a huge amount of the food that I ate on a day-to-day basis. I ate a lot of fruit because I would eat a lot of kind of porridge and oats with nuts and with fruit mixed in. I absolutely love fresh fruit. That is pretty devastating, but honestly the nuts is the biggest problem, because I was getting most of my, fair bit of my iron. I was getting definitely quite a lot of my calcium, even from like chia seeds and other forms of seeds and nuts and things. Like almonds are good for calcium. I was drinking a lot of almond milk, which I know actually apparently is really bad for the environment, but at least I was getting things like calcium and omegas and all sorts of other things from the various different nuts and seeds that I was eating. So yeah, and it just has really made me realize, basically at that point, once I realized that I was suffering from all of these allergies, I realized that I was probably not going to be able to be vegan, at least not right now, that I should probably stop for the moment trying to be vegan until I figured out what was going on, because my diet has become overnight, literally overnight, like in the space of a couple of weeks, while I figured out what foods were triggering this problem. In the space of a couple of weeks, I suddenly ended up with a diet that has become hugely restricted. Like, I used to eat so many bananas, canny bananas, strawberries, raspberries, peaches, any kind of fruit with any level of acidity in it, basically. The only fruit so far that I can tell that I can definitely eat is blueberries, which is great. I'm still eating blueberries by the ton. But even getting vitamin C now has become complicated for me. I'm not sure about oranges, but I definitely can't eat, like, strawberries was the main source of vitamin C for me. And yeah, it's a whole thing. So I've gotten to this point now, yeah, like, we're almost overnight, like, I suddenly had such a restricted diet, because if I was trying to eat vegan, and also cutting out all nuts, all seeds and all fruit, or most seeds and most fruit and all nuts. I was in dire straits, basically, nutritionally speaking, at least until I start figuring out how I can get all of the nutrients that I need. So I'm not gonna lie, I strongly considered eating fish, because I was thinking, I realised that calcium was a huge issue as well. I don't know if I ever got a reading on my calcium levels in my blood. I'll have to ask my doctor about that, or not. I don't know what my calcium levels actually are, but I'm willing to bet that they're not great. And I do think that calcium is related to, it's related to iron absorption in a negative way, but I think it's related to vitamin D absorption in a positive way. Like, I think if you've got low calcium, you're likely to have low vitamin D or something like that. I was strongly considering going back to eating fish and buying fish and cooking fish again, because I was just freaking out, honestly, about just the fact that I was already deficient in at least 2 things, and now suddenly I was having to cut out a huge part of what I ate. Like, I ate a lot of peanut butter, guys, like a lot of peanut butter. I subsisted on peanut butter and various different nut and seed kind of things. Like, it was a huge part. It's all of my dietary fat was all pretty much nuts and seeds, because I didn't want to be eating too many avocados either, because they get shipped in from all sorts of far-flung places. So I considered eating fish, and I decided I couldn't bring myself to do it, honestly. I have eaten fish a couple of times in the past, kind of since then, in restaurants and things like that, because I've kind of had it in mind that I maybe need to think about normalizing it for myself again, but I haven't been able to bring myself to actually make it a part of my normal diet, because it doesn't quite feel necessary yet. But I have reintroduced cheese, because I was concerned about calcium, and I couldn't figure out a way to get enough calcium into my diet through all of the things that I can currently eat, and that I currently do eat on a regular basis. I'm basically having to reconsider my entire system, my entire dietary habits, and I'm still contemplating reintroducing fish into my diet for nutritional reasons. And it's kind of made me feel quite sad, because it's made me feel very helpless. It's made me feel very frustrated that I can't make the choice necessarily to live in a healthy vegan way. And I know that there were a lot, and this is the thing as well, I know that there were a lot of vegans out there who would have no time for me and for this, and who would be absolutely horrified at the idea that I would consider eating fish, that I have reintroduced dairy. And I think in the past, to be honest, I have been a bit judgmental about people who have said that for various reasons, like if they are celiac, if they have to be gluten-free, that therefore they've chosen to not be vegetarian because it's like too much restriction in their diet. I try not to be judgmental about people who choose to eat meat, because I chose to eat meat for so many years of my life, well after the point where I really could have made an informed decision not to. But if I'm honest, like a tiny part of me was kind of thinking a bit like, there are definitely ways that you could do this. It's not that hard if you just are a little bit more organized. If you just think it through a little bit more, you can definitely still eat a very healthy diet and be vegetarian or even vegan while still, having those restrictions. But I have a newfound understanding for those people now, for people who kind of know in their heart of hearts that they would rather be vegetarian or vegan, but who just feel like they're in a place in their life where they feel like, because of this kind of surprising or new restriction on their diet, that they are just feeling really helpless and feeling like unable to make the choices that they want to make. And like, I know that I could definitely, if I sat down and made out a meal plan and figured out like all the things that I need to eat a week, I'm sure that I could figure it out. I'm sure that I could eat vegan and avoid all the things that I can't eat and still be okay. I'm pretty sure anyway. But it would require eating probably huge amounts of specific food types, and I wouldn't trust myself necessarily at the moment anyway to actually eat enough. Like I wouldn't trust myself to eat enough broccoli, for example, to give myself the amount of calcium that I need. Like, I mean, most of the calcium that I'd be getting, I'd say, outside of cheese right now is from like the soy products that I eat. I think some of them have like added calcium into them. and probably broccoli and a couple of other vegetables that have some calcium to them, and that's kind of it. It's not a lot, and it's surprising how much you need to eat in order to get your calcium intake a day. So maybe in the future I will be able to go back to being vegan, or eating the way that in the way that I used to, but for the moment at least I feel like I need to prioritize my health. It's kind of sad to me that I feel so guilty for doing that I feel so guilty for prioritizing what my body needs in order to feel at my best, because I feel a bit like, why should I feel at my best when animals have to suffer in order for me to feel that way? Like if it means that I have to be a little bit nutritionally deficient in some things, and it means that one animal suffers less as a result, surely I should do that. But it's tough. It's tough to think that way. It's tough to really see the decisions that you're making in terms of your diet. You don't know if you're having any direct influence. Like, it's not even as simple as saying, like, if I buy a block of cheese once a week, that one animal is going to suffer when it wouldn't otherwise. It's really not that straightforward. And at the end of the day, I think I'm going to have to, I feel like I want to give myself permission to just eat what I need to eat in order to feel good, because I think that there are so many ways that I can contribute to this world and to this life, and I can only do my best work and reach out to people in the best way that I can if I'm feeling healthy. And it's almost certain, I mean, I've been making a lot of videos recently about productivity and my energy levels and all of that, and a part of me is feeling very frustrated because my vitamin D levels are probably up to normal by now. I don't know, because they only test it for you once a year in the UK. Like, they won't test your vitamin D levels more than once a year, which is really frustrating. I know that my iron levels are back to, or my ferritin levels are back to like normal, and my vitamin D levels are probably back to normal because I've been supplementing for so long at this point, and I feel like I should be feeling better. And therefore I've been kind of looking to other reasons why I've been still feeling very low in energy and still kind of having lots of slumps and struggling to be productive and so on. But at the end of the day, it could very well be kind of the fallout from all the nutritional deficiencies that I feel like I've probably had, like probably more than just iron and vitamin D. Like I say, calcium I reckon might also have been low. And at the end of the day, if the way that I've been eating has been contributing to me not being able to work and not being able to progress and not being able to put the material out into the world that I could otherwise be putting out there, then that may be having a worse impact on the world. That might be a very arrogant thing to say, but it might be having a worse impact on the world than me eating some cheese. Yeah, I also will note as well that dairy farming in the UK and Ireland, I have this naive idea that it's like less inhumane than in the US. I think that's still true. It's less and less true over time. I think there is a lot of factory farming, especially in the UK now. Maybe not as much in Ireland. I do think that the animals get treated better. I still don't think that dairy farming is ever ethical, no matter what, even grass-fed. I definitely want to get myself off cow's milk completely, because I definitely don't want to support cow farming at all eventually, but it is what it is. This is the situation I'm in at the moment, and I have two kind of conflicting feelings of frustration and disappointment in myself. I have the feeling of disappointment right now where I'm feeling like I have to kind of put my ideals on the back burner and just try and feed myself what I need to be fed, and that's frustrating, and that makes me feel bad. But then on the other hand, I'm feeling a lot of guilt and shame about not having managed to be to nourish myself to the full extent. I thought that I was being healthy, and I think that a lot of us who are vegetarian or vegan have this false understanding that we're told our whole lives that we need to eat more vegetables, we need to eat fruit and vegetables, and it's always this kind of emphasis on fruit and veg, and if you just eat enough of that, then you're golden. And this might be true for people who eat meat, because it is easier to get all the nutrients that you need if you are eating, lean meat. So yeah, there's kind of this idea that like, oh, I eat lots of vegetables, I eat more vegetables than, a non-vegetarian or vegan by default, because I'm just left with fewer other things. I mean, unless you're literally just eating bread and hummus or bread and peanut butter every day, then okay, then yeah, you're not eating that many vegetables. But most of us, I think, do eat more vegetables on average. And I think like I say, we have this false understanding that therefore we're golden. Therefore we don't have to think about our nutrition. We don't have to make sure that we're eating enough of everything. Where actually, I think as a vegetarian or vegan, actually you are more likely to be deficient in certain nutrients. You actually do have to be more careful, not less careful, than a meat eater. Because meat eaters just by default do get certain nutrients and stuff out of the meat that they're eating that is harder to obtain if that's not part of your diet. And because everything we learn about nutrition is based on an omnivorous diet. So when we are planning meals for ourselves, it's based, on this cultural understanding of what a whole diet is. So if you take out the meat, actually you are missing out on things that, if we were a society that where it was entirely vegetarian, we would probably be a lot better at, being used to knowing and having this kind of intuitive understanding of what needs to be eaten every day in order to be healthy. But we don't have that because we do eat meat, and therefore, it's easy for us to forget that we actually might need to eat things like lentils and beans and spinach and things like that every day in order to make sure that we do have enough iron and protein in our diets. And it's I don't know, I just feel a little bit like I'm letting myself down on so many different levels. Like I've let myself down nutritionally, I'm letting myself down now ethically, and it's frustrating and weird. And I just kind of wanted to put this out there in order to just remind you that, if you are struggling to eat the diet and live the lifestyle that you feel is the most ethical, you're not alone. And I empathize, and maybe you do need to be a little bit easier on yourself, and but also to remind you to maybe be easier on other people as well, and not to be judgmental about people who make the decision that they can't necessarily have their diets in a particular way. And I think it's really easy to get very perfectionistic about the way that we live our lives and the ethical choices that we make. And sometimes I think we think that, like, if we can live this perfect vegan, waste-free life, that we're going to fix everything and we're going to eliminate climate change and animal cruelty. And unfortunately it's not the case. Unfortunately, all of these small changes that we make in our lives are not, like I say, they're not actually going to add up to solving the problem ultimately. And I think that if I never do end up going vegan again, if I do end up eating, reintroducing fish into my diet and eating dairy on a regular basis and so on, I definitely want to start putting more time and energy into political aims and into just helping to campaign for environmental concerns and for animal concerns and welfare and so on, and to really start thinking about ways that actually would probably be more productive in terms of creating real change, rather than me making the very kind of passive decision to not eat certain things and not consume certain things. I think ultimately we actually might be doing more good to take positive action, to whether it's just to donate to a cause, to a charity, to a political party, or whether we're donating our time. My aim when I move back to Dublin, maybe not while I'm still doing the PhD, because I'm still going to be juggling a lot of different things, but as soon as I finish my PhD, I am planning to start donating time, because I won't have much money, but I do want to start volunteering somewhere, somehow, towards a cause. My biggest concern at the moment is the environment, it's climate change. And that is what I feel like I most want to sink some time into and feel like I'm contributing towards. I think it is the scariest issue that we are facing, that our generation is facing. We're facing a lot of scary issues. To me, it is the scariest. It is potentially the most devastating to our species. And I just feel like, at least if I can do that, then I will feel less bad about having to do things like eat cheese and avocados in order to feel healthy. And I don't know, I don't really know where I'm going with this video, but I think I just wanted to kind of make that statement to say, like, I tried being vegan, and unfortunately for reasons that are very out of my control, for right now anyway, it's proving to be almost impossible, and it is impossible for me right now to do that. And I think I just want to say that, to be open and honest, and also say it in case there's anyone out there who can relate, and in case there are people out there who are living on very, very restrictive diets that probably are going to result in nutritional deficiency, you're not doing yourself any favors. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it's worth restricting all of these things out of your diet that you think of as being unethical. If you're going to end up not being healthy, if you're going to end up like not feeling good. And I think that at least look into it, at least consider what may be missing from what you're eating, and how you can be kind of kinder to yourself and show more self-love to yourself in terms of your nutrition and so on. I don't know, I think I'm going to leave it there because I'm not really sure where I'm going with this ramble. I'm not looking for nutritional advice right now, to be completely honest with you. If you have something that you think that I absolutely need to hear, specifically relating to anything that I mentioned in this video about things that I'm struggling with in terms of nutrition, I mean, okay, if you really feel like I need to hear it, do share it, but I'm not really looking for nutritional advice right now. There's so much out there, I know, that I can look up and find out for myself, and I will gradually do that over time. But I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with it right now, if I'm completely honest. It's been causing me a lot of anxiety, which is also probably kind of contributing to my exhaustion. I haven't been getting a lot of like what I consider to be classic anxiety symptoms in a long time, which is really great, which I actually think the vitamin D might be helping with, which is fantastic. Like I haven't been getting the kind of classic, you know, horrible anxiety, tension feeling and jitters and just that horrible panicky feeling I haven't been getting, and the dizziness and stuff I haven't been getting, which is wonderful. But I do think that probably the anxiety of having to deal with all of this change and trying to be healthier and realizing that I'm not as healthy as I thought I was, is probably contributing to my exhaustion. And you know, all of this, it takes its toll. All of this stress really does take its toll. So yeah, for the moment, I'm just I'm going for those foods that I know that I need to eat, that I know are going to help. And I'm just trying to do the best that I can and gradually start incorporating new dishes and new foods and things like that into my diet, and not just rely on almonds and peanut butter like I used to. And hazelnuts, guys, I can't eat hazelnuts. And I didn't eat hazelnuts in a healthy way before. I ate hazelnuts in praline and you know, chocolate spreads like Ferrero Rocher and Nutella and things like that. Like these were some of my like guilty non-vegan pleasures in life. But my favorite thing in the world was like chocolate with hazelnut, like milk chocolate with hazelnut. And I can't eat that anymore. Yeah, it's really, really sad. I don't know if it's going to be forever or not. Like maybe it won't, but I'm really, really sad about that. Like that is literally like my favorite treat in the world. And it's no longer something I can eat. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. I don't know what you got out of this. I don't know if you got anything out of it. It's just really me rambling and complaining for a while into the camera. But yeah, if you can relate, do let me know. Do let me know if you have any thoughts. Yeah, just comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll talk to you again soon.